We all want children to have the best start in life, and often the thing that makes a difference is in being able to identify developmental delay early so the right assistance can be provided before there's an impact on the attainment of important skills. But in very young children, how do we tell if they're doing well or would benefit from some targeted assistance? Well, Professor Leslie Rescorla from the Child Study Institute in Pennsylvania is using language as an indicator for a range of developmental problems.
He's got a cow nose, so he's an elephant.
With a cow nose.
Language is a very important marker of development in general. So if you identify children who are slow to talk at 2, some of them are going to have intellectual disability, some of them are going to have hearing impairment, some of them are going to have autism spectrum disorders, some of them are going to have comprehension or receptive language problems as well as expressive, and some are just going to be late talkers. So it's an easy way to identify children that might have a whole range of other disabilities. And those other disabilities are even more important to treat early than an expressive language delay.
Cold? Or is it for sunny and hot weather?
Cold.
It is for cold weather. Good girl. What's it called? What's that called?
Thank you for opening.
The flowers grow. Yeah. Are they big or are they little?
Big.
They are very big. What colour are those flowers?
Yellow.
I wonder if you can say it like me.
Obviously, the less words that you have, the harder it is to engage with people in your society, whether it's your sisters or brothers or your friends or your parents, whoever it's going to be. Some of those children, the late talkers, will go on to have no problems and will have no long-term impact. About 50% of them will go on to have further problems that will have impact later on in their literacy, but also with their relationships with others if they're poor communicators.
What it's going to be. What is it? What are they? Are they long pants or are they shorts?
Shorts.
They are shorts. What have you got?
A hat one.
A hat. Do we wear the hat when it's raining or when it's sunny? Sunny.
And when it's raining.
When it's raining or when it's sunny?
When it's raining.
No, you're tricking me, aren't you? I think so. When do we...
Children begin to speak their first words around a year of age, but even before that they understand words that are spoken to them and they can discriminate sounds in their language, and they use a lot of gestures and nonverbal communication to convey their wants and needs. So they already have done a lot toward the acquisition process before they start talking. Once they start talking, they begin to acquire words, generally starting at around 12 months, and by 18 months many children have quite a few words, but there's a lot of variation. And by 24 months, the instrument that I developed, the Language Development Survey, has shown that the average vocabulary is between about 170 to 190 words, but there's a wide range. So the average range is from maybe 75 words to 225 words. So that there's a big range in terms of how many words children have in the 1 to 2 year period. It's age and gender based. So the cutoff for boys at 18 to 23 months is fewer words than for girls.
On the rainy day for
We're
me?
not on that day.
But there's debate about at what age assessments of this type yield meaningful results. There's a trade-off between assessing a child too early and identifying a problem that could self-resolve within a few years, and identifying them too late and missing out on the opportunity to provide targeted assistance that could help overcome developmental delay.
A hippodose.
There is a lot of variation, and that if you look, for instance, at 18 months, there's so much variation that it's really not very predictive of how they're going to be later on. So I've come over time to think that it's best to really start identifying children as delayed at around 2, because there's so many children that really are normal who maybe don't have that many words at 18 months.
This little slideshow is about the Black Dog Institute. We are passionate about education, not only about mood disorders, but also about positive psychology and how to build resilience. In the last year, we've educated over 5,000 people. We're primarily a research and education facility that specialises in mood disorders. We have one of the best and most informative websites in the mental health arena. We have a specialised mood disorders clinic which sees around 1,000 people a year. Because everyone deserves peace of mind.
Pollutants may affect how fat you are.
The doctor showed me my x-rays. I was really worried.
To what extent have you studied this in humans?
What is a psychopathic personality? They're decimated, many more than we thought.
In fact, the name itself perpetuates a myth. TonicDirect, for doctors who care about their patients and patients who care about their health.
Australia has one of the highest immunisation rates in the world, and it's this strong community acceptance that has led to significant increases in the health of the entire nation. Keeping a record of you and your family's immunisation is a good thing to do. If you haven't kept a record, you might want to check back with the immunisation clinic or GP who did the immunisations for you. Children born after 1989 are automatically registered on the Australian Childhood Immunisation Register that's held by Medicare Australia. Also, if you're travelling overseas, there are various vaccinations you may need depending on your travel destination. Travelling overseas involves a higher risk of contracting some diseases, so even if immunisation is not required, it still might be a good idea. So talk to your doctor about your options 6 to 8 weeks before you travel. Making sure you're immunised not only protects you, but also the people around you.
Ryan was diagnosed with asthma around about 2. Ryan never let asthma get in the way. Ryan's favourite sport by far was soccer. He just lived and breathed for soccer. I don't recall anyone ever telling me that one of my children could die from asthma. I think we all believe that it's going to happen to someone else. The reality is it happens to normal people like us.
Gestational diabetes is diabetes which comes on during a woman's pregnancy. That's higher than normal blood sugar levels. For most women, they haven't a clue that it's occurring and it needs a blood test. But in some, they get thirsty, they go to the bathroom to pass urine more often and can lose weight. But in most instances, as I said, they don't know. It's really important that if you're pregnant, you have your fasting blood sugar checked to see whether or not you do have gestational diabetes. Women who tend to be at more risk, it can occur in anybody, but women who tend to be at more risk are over 30 and are obese or overweight themselves. Often it goes away after the pregnancy finishes, but such women are at risk of type 2 diabetes later in life. Why is it so important during pregnancy? Well, first of all, the woman's health herself, but it can affect the baby's health. Women with gestational diabetes can have larger than normal babies, which might make a cesarean section more likely. And also, the baby can have low blood sugars after he or she is delivered, which unless they're detected, can cause brain damage. So it's really important to know what your blood sugar is doing during pregnancy. Make sure you don't put on too much weight during pregnancy. And if you're thinking about becoming pregnant, try to get down to a normal weight.
Say it. Your turn. You choose one. We're going to do one more go each and then we're finished. Good work. What is it? It's a... Ooh, what are they?
A dress.
It is a dress. Who wears dresses? Girls or boys?
Girls.
Girls do.
I'm a princess.
You're a princess, are you?
Yeah, I'm a princess.
When it's raining or when it's sunny?
Raining.
So how does the assessment work and what do parents need to do?
Our language survey has 310 words, and they're arranged by category. So there's the food words, the animal words, the vehicles, the people words, and so on. And then with each category, they have to check off if the child uses the word spontaneously, not just understands it and not just imitates it. But they don't, children don't have to pronounce it exactly the same way. So they could say doggy and mean doggy, or they could say baba and they could mean bottle. And they don't necessarily have to use exactly the same meaning. So if they say doggy for cats or for wolves, they still would be credited for doggy as long as they use it for doggy as well. So parents fill this out. It takes about 10 minutes.
Do you know whose nose that is?
Pig nose.
It's a hippo nose. I wonder if you can say it like me. We've got a duck with
A hippo nose.
hippo nose. You tell me.
A duck. A duck.
With, we've got to use a special word with. A duck with hippo.
But it's not just how many words they have, it's also how they use them.
The parent is asked if the child does combine words into sentences to give examples of the longest and best sentences that the child has used recently. And parents are actually pretty good at doing this. And so if they say something like more juice or big truck, then that would be like a 2-word sentence. If they say daddy come home, that would be like a 3-word sentence. And sometimes they write much longer sentences. So they say, I don't want juice, I want Coke. So that the children can produce quite long sentences at 2 because there's a wide variation in that.
So, I mean, and they're all progressing really well. The sentence level's not too hard, but at a nice level for them, I think.
In our early LDS studies, we used as our criterion for language delay fewer than 50 words or no combinations at age 2.
So when you find a child with too few words, what is it that you're actually identifying?
Essentially, I want to look at, is the receptive language normal? Is the nonverbal ability normal? Does the child seem like he or she has an autistic spectrum disorder? Does the input from the family appear to be adequate? And is the hearing normal?
Tell me again.
It might be things like concepts, things like first and last and up and down and big and little. So understanding those kind of concepts leads later on to be able to understand what you're hearing in a classroom and what you're reading. So they're really important.
Is it at the top or near the bottom? Good boy. Well done. Is it near the top or is it near the bottom?
Near the bottom.
It is near the bottom.
So the strategies are things like speak slowly, use words that the child is maybe showing readiness to learn because the child already understands those words. Try to focus in on what the child's interested in. So if the child is playing with a car, then you would say things like, oh, nice car, give me the car, push the car. I do a little bit of a developmental screening to see whether the child seems non-verbally okay. And so can the child do puzzles and things that are appropriate at that age. And again, if the child is delayed in any of the things except talking, I would say you need to do something now. If the child is only a late talker, then I would say, well, why don't you try to do this stimulation tips, and then at 2.5, let's take a look again. If the child is still delayed at 2.5, then I might say, well, seems like maybe we should think about doing something. And certainly by 3, I would recommend some speech-language therapy if the child really has almost no words by 3.
Pig.
Oh,
You never have a pig.
You certainly may have a pig.
Hi, I'm Michael Slater, and if you're watching this, it's probably because you're an ankylosing spondylitis sufferer, otherwise known as AS, or it might be that you know someone who does. I've been living with AS for the most part of my adult life, and today I'm going to demonstrate some exercises put together by physiotherapists to help alleviate the symptoms.
There are so many people in the community who have asthma, you're bound to know somebody who's got it, or indeed you may well have it yourself. The question is, if you're on asthma treatment, or not as the case may be, how do you know your asthma control is good? Well, there are a series of questions you can ask to find out. But in general, you need to know things like, how often are you bothered by wheeze, cough, breathlessness when you exert yourself? Are you waking up at night with your asthma? Are you losing work or school because of it? And if the answer to these questions is yes, your asthma control is probably not very good. The other important thing to know is how much you're using your reliever medication. That's usually the blue puffer. If you're using that every day or several times a week, it may well be that you're overusing it and not getting the benefits from proper asthma treatment. So here are the questions you should be asking yourself. On average, how often are you waking at night with your asthma? And on average, when you wake up in the morning, how bad are your asthma symptoms? How much does your asthma limit your activities? And in general, how much shortness of breath do you experience? How often have you wheezed or coughed in the past few weeks, or since you last saw your family doctor? How often are you using your reliever puffer every week? And finally, how much work or school are you losing? So if you or somebody you know is experiencing symptoms like these, you don't need to. These are treatable. You can live well with asthma. So go and see your family doctor and talk it over.
If you're unsure about any of the steps, you can refer to that.
For more information, go to the National Asthma Council's website.
The emergency department operates 24 hours a day to provide care to people who are very ill or who have been injured. Upon arrival to the emergency department, a nurse will assess a person's medical condition and assign them to an urgency or triage category. There are 5 triage categories defined by the Australasia triage scale. This ranges from triage category 1, that is assigned to a patient who requires immediate medical attention or resuscitation, to category 5, that is assigned to a patient whose medical condition is less urgent. When there is a large influx of patients attends the emergency department over a short period of time, they are triaged and seen accordingly, and sometimes waits for non-urgent patients are unavoidable. During busy periods such as winter, emergency staff activate the capacity and demand escalation plan to minimize waiting times for both patients and ambulances. Additionally, staff work in close consultation with the ambulance officers to ensure that the patients are seen and treated as soon as possible. Emergency departments are busy places, but please be reassured that you'll be seen as quickly as possible. Patients who experience heart and breathing problems or who requires urgent medical attention should attend the emergency department or contact 000. Patients with non-urgent condition should first try to see their GP or attend a 24-hour clinic, or they can contact the free hotline Health Direct Australia to speak to a registered nurse.
A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, according to Mary Poppins, but a spoonful of medicine may dish out more or less than you need. It's a common way of measuring medicines in the home, but a spoonful is not an accurate measure, and you risk getting the dosage wrong if you use one. In a study from the US, participants were shown what 5 mils or 1 teaspoon of a cold medicine looked like when poured into a small spoon. They were then asked to pour the same amount into different size spoons, and the amount they poured was directly related to the size of the spoon. They poured too much when using a larger spoon and too little when using a medium-sized spoon. While a single dosing error of a cough or cold medicine may not have serious consequences, it could if the medicine contains paracetamol or if it's used frequently over a few days. Those errors can accumulate and cause serious side effects. Use a measuring cap, dosing spoon, measuring dropper or dosing syringe. It's safer and much more effective.